Welcome to the Deep Dive. We're here to cut through the noise, getting right to the heart of finance and tech. And today, we've got a really interesting question. What if building a new financial system was, well, more like playing a game? Strategically, I mean. We're diving deep into AIFEX. It's a project that's actually framing its whole approach that way, like a game, but one designed to build a transparent financial future. So let's unpack this a bit. AIFEX isn't just, another crypto project popping up. The sources describe it as a game for building a new financial system.
That framing, well, it immediately grabs your attention, doesn't it? Suggests something deliberate.
It really does. And what's fascinating truly is how they've managed to take something incredibly complex, this idea of a financial migration, and distill it into a framework that's, well, accessible. By calling it a game, they simplify how you participate, but at the same time, they're revealing this deep, long-term strategic vision. It's not just a catchy phrase. It seems to be their core design philosophy. It guides everything a user does on the platform. Right, and that strategic thinking, that philosophy, that's exactly what we want to explore today. Our mission here is to really dissect what AIFEX is doing, the why behind this game structure, and importantly, what it all means for you, the listener. Whether you're, a seasoned investor or just someone curious about where finance is heading next, this feels like understanding a potential blueprint.
Absolutely. We're looking at a system engineered, it seems, for full transparency and for strategic long-term engagement, which is a step beyond the often very speculative nature you see in many early-stage crypto projects. Understanding these game elements, these steps, is really key to grasping the, let's say, the underlying mechanics, the company's master plan for ideally sustainable growth and stability. That's crucial for any project that's serious about, eventual institutional acceptance.
Okay, all right. Let's step onto this strategic playing field then. AIFEX seems to lay out a pretty clear three-step journey for people involved. And maybe think of it less like a rigid checklist and more like the optimal path for really playing strategically within this emerging financial ecosystem.
Yes, it's quite an ingenious way to illustrate what's actually a multifaceted process. By framing it as a game, AIFEX clearly defines the actions that align your individual interests with the protocol's bigger long-term goals. This kind of guidance, while it minimizes confusion and it maximizes the potential for collective success, which is really a hallmark of well-designed economic systems, isn't it?
So let's talk about step one. Your first strategic move here is called entering the field.
Yeah.
It basically means getting your hands on AFX tokens. But, and this seems critical, it's not just any purchase. You're specifically told to acquire these AFX tokens on PancakeSwap. That's a decentralized exchange, a DX. This specific method, they say, is central to the strategy. Why?
Yes, this specific entry point is absolutely foundational and for a very deliberate strategic reason. AIFEX is deeply committed to migrating all its core operations, its assets, everything on-chain. What that means practically is every transaction, every holding, every bit of financial data gets recorded permanently, transparently on a public blockchain. Anyone can verify it. It's a fundamental shift, really. Moving asset ownership away from, say, private company databases towards a shared, auditable source of truth. Their philosophy seems crystal clear. Anyone who wants a seat at the table must hold real coins, not just numbers in an app. This isn't just a tech preference, you see. It's a statement. It's about verifiable ownership, minimizing the need for trust, drastically reducing counterparty risk. These are cornerstones of genuine DeFi.
That clarity, around who owns what. It really is a potential game changer. Takes away the ambiguity, makes it concrete. So, okay, you've entered the field. You've got your AFX tokens from PancakeSwap. What's the next strategic play in this AIFEX game?
Right. The next stage involves, as they put it, locking in your character, which in practical terms means staking your newly acquired AFX tokens right within the AIFEX app.
Okay, staking. And this raises a common question, right? Why stake? What's the strategic angle there beyond just maybe earning something?
It's a great question. And from their strategic viewpoint, staking is much more than just earning rewards, although that's part of it. It's really about actively aligning yourself with the protocol's stability and its growth plans. By committing your AFX, by staking them, you're not just passively supporting the network, you're actively helping to reduce the immediately available supply of tokens.
Reducing the circulating supply.
Exactly, which basic economics tells us is critical for potential value appreciation if demand holds or grows. And in return for this commitment, participants get daily rewards. The structure they outline offers 3% daily or 3.5% yearly, and there's a clear incentive baked in. Staking for longer periods results in higher returns. So this mechanism, it's clearly designed to encourage long-term commitment, and that helps create liquidity stability. Both are vital if you're trying to build a genuinely resilient financial system.
It definitely sounds like a system rewarding patience, rewarding commitment.
Yeah.
And that long-term strategic thinking seems to really come into focus with what they call their master plan, right? This feels like where the company's design philosophy goes beyond just the immediate actions and starts guiding how people should behave for the good of the whole system.
Precisely. The core message here, and this is a really critical insight for anyone looking at this, is that AIFEX seems to be using elements of game theory. They're trying to engineer scarcity and actively incentivize holding onto the tokens. They're quite upfront that trying to sell AFX quickly, especially now in this foundational phase, is a distinct strategic disadvantage.
Why specifically?
Well, the project's own documentation points out that USDAI, which is likely their intended stablecoin, is, quote, not stable yet.
Ah, okay. That's crucial.
It is. It means its value isn't reliably pegged to something like the US dollar right now. So if you're trying to cash out into USDAI during this early phase, you could face unexpected price swings. It reinforces why the protocol is pushing towards long-term staking instead of quick exits. In complete contrast, holding and staking are positioned as the winning strategic moves, the ones that lead to sustained profit potential, consistent rewards, and crucially, the opportunity for significant long-term growth in value as the whole ecosystem matures.
Okay, so putting it all together, what does this mean for someone wondering about the long game here? It sounds like AFX has a very clear, almost, prescriptive roadmap. They literally say the winner in this game is the one who follows the company's plan. But hang on. In a decentralized space, isn't that kind of guided strategy a bit unusual? What are the implications?
That's a really perceptive question, and it does highlight a kind of nuanced aspect here. While AIFEX is clearly aiming for full transparency for on-chain operations, this game structure does imply a degree of, let's call it, centralized strategic guidance, especially in these early stages. Right.
Now, that can offer stability. It gives a clear path for growth, which many might appreciate. But, shrewd investors will definitely recognize this balance or maybe tension between the decentralized technology itself and a development plan that's being steered pretty centrally right now. The company's strategic goals are stated very explicitly. Reduce the AFX supply. That naturally tends to increase demand, creating upward pressure on the price.
Basic supply and demand?
It is, but they seem to be actively engineering that scarcity. However, for this to truly drive long-term value, it can't just rely on speculative hoarding, right?
Yep.
It needs sustained utility for the token, real adoption driving new demand over time. Their ultimate stated goals are that full blockchain transparency and, crucially, widespread market acceptance. So every step from how you acquire the tokens to the staking incentives, it all seems meticulously engineered to drive towards these outcomes. To establish AIFEX not as some fleeting crypto trend, but as a foundational accepted financial entity. Which brings us neatly to the bigger picture, doesn't it? This whole framework, this game analogy. It makes it abundantly clear that AIFEX is not positioning itself as a place for short-term speculation. This isn't designed as a pump-and-dump scenario. It's explicitly a game for building a new financial system. It sounds like they're playing for much, much higher stakes than just a quick profit.
Yeah, and it's vital for anyone involved to grasp that distinction. The consequences they outline are quite stark. Quick selling, in their view, actually depreciates the value. It undermines the very system they're trying to build. Conversely, holding and staking. These are strategically positioned as the path towards stability, offering those consistent rewards, building confidence in the asset itself, and holding out the potential for substantial long-term profit as the system matures and gains acceptance. This really is framed as building a new global standard, not just riding some temporary wave of crypto hype. It feels more like a deliberate multi-year construction project.
And to build that kind of investor confidence, to achieve those really ambitious goals, AFX isn't just like inventing some new strategy out of thin air, are they? They seem keen to point out that their approach actually follows the, and I quote, standard path of all world-class DeFi protocols. That feels like a really crucial point for credibility. It signals a more mature approach.
Yes, and what's particularly compelling about that claim is that it's true. This isn't some novel, untested experiment they're running. It's an acknowledged progression that you see with established DeFi giants. They explicitly draw parallels to highly recognizable names like Uniswap, like Curve, even PancakeSwap itself, where you acquire the token.
The big players.
Exactly. So By aligning with the development paths of these major successful decentralized finance platforms, AIFE is basically signaling maturity in its design. It's showing a commitment to strategies that are proven to achieve scale and deep liquidity. It essentially communicates, look, we're not just messing around here, we're building on the shoulders of giants. We're implementing best practices for long-term viability. This kind of strategic imitation, well, it provides a familiar roadmap, and that definitely helps instill confidence.
That's actually a huge endorsement for their method. But wow, their vision doesn't just stop at becoming, another world-class DeFi protocol. They have these incredibly ambitious stated goals aiming for an IPO, not just anywhere, but on the Hong Kong Stock Exchange and NASDAQ, an IPO for a crypto asset on major global exchanges.
That's incredibly bold, isn't it? A very
Hi.
long-term play. It signals a transformation far beyond what you normally expect in crypto. Absolutely. The implication there is profound. It really is. It's about elevating AFX from being just a crypto coin to becoming a recognized global financial asset,
Okay.
something that could potentially stand shoulder to shoulder with traditional stocks, with equities.
Hmm.
And this isn't just about achieving a certain market cap. It's about gaining institutional acceptance, navigating complex regulatory compliance, and fully integrating these decentralized assets into the mainstream financial ecosystem. From a strategic perspective, actually achieving an IPO on exchanges like NASDAQ and the HKEX, that involves clearing huge hurdles, complex legal frameworks, demonstrating really robust financial reporting, proving long-term sustainability well beyond typical crypto-native metrics. This move positions AFX not as some alternative to traditional finance, but potentially as a future component of it. They seem to be aiming to set a precedent for how tokenized assets can bridge that gap to global public markets. It's a vision that could transform an early digital asset into a globally recognized regulated security. That's the scale of the ambition.
And crucially, the company seems to emphasize that this isn't just some far-off dream. It's presented as an ongoing process. They describe this current moment as a transitional period, sometimes calling it a migration effect. What exactly is that?
Right, this migration effect, in essence, seems to be AIFEX transitioning its core operations, its asset ledger, everything entirely onto the blockchain. Think of it like moving from maybe an internal proprietary system to one that's fully public, fully verifiable by anyone. It's clearly a critical juncture for them. And the company highlights that those who, quote, keep pace during this transition stand to gain a huge advantage. What keeping pace seems to mean is actively participating in that staking process we talked about, adhering to the company's strategic plan during this really pivotal shift towards full on-chain transparency and ultimately institutional readiness. So for you, the early participant, it means your engagement right now during this phase directly contributes to building that transparent foundation. You're essentially positioning yourself as a foundational stakeholder in what they hope will be a new kind of financial institution. It frames it as being an early builder, not just a later adopter, and capitalizing on this specific strategic timing.
Okay, so let's try and recap this for you, our listener. The core message coming from AIFEX seems really clear. The company is meticulously, strategically moving towards full on-chain transparency. It's a guided, long-term ecosystem they're building. They argue that those who engage in quick selling, especially during this foundational migration phase, might actually miss out on significant potential advantages down the line. According to AIFEX's own long-term plan, those who hold and, crucially, stake their AFX tokens stand to gain those consistent returns now, and they have the opportunity for potentially substantial future value growth, with the ultimate goal being this transformation into a globally recognized financial asset, possibly even publicly listed.
Yeah, it really encourages a profound shift in mindset, doesn't it? Moving away from that rapid, often highly speculative trading you see elsewhere towards strategic, patient, long-term participation. And as we discussed, this mirrors the kind of journey established DeFi protocols went through before they achieved that global financial asset status. But here there's this explicit roadmap pointing towards mainstream financial integration via IPOs. It really frames participation as being an active part of constructing a new financial paradigm, not just betting on a coin.
It is truly fascinating, isn't it? Seeing a financial system presented almost like a strategic board game, one that meticulously guides participants towards what they envision as a collective, transparent future. And with such incredibly ambitious plans for global recognition, it really makes you wonder, doesn't it? What if the game that people might be playing today isn't just a game at all? What if it's actually shaping the foundational assets of tomorrow's global economy? Thank you for joining us on this deep dive into the strategy and vision behind AIFEX. We hope you're leaving with a clearer, perhaps more strategic understanding of what they're building and its potential. Until next time. Keep digging deeper. Keep asking questions about what truly moves the financial world.